Hi, it's Matt Chapman here on the At The Races social media feeds. I'm joined by the former champion jockey Seb Sanders, and we're looking forward to the big race at the weekend. It is, of course, the King George VI and Queen Elizabeth QIPCO Stakes Group 1 category at Ascot, the midsummer highlight over a mile and a half, clash of the generations, and most importantly, for those of us who love the Breeders' Cup, a win and you're in Breeders' Cup race. Now, we know Power Driver's not going, Seb, but Mishra's likely to now. Yeah. Before we get into the runners, the King George, not a race you won, even though you are a classic winning jockey, but a race you would have really wanted to win. One of the great races.
Yeah, I mean, I rode Warsan in there when he finished fourth to Azamore at Newbury, and I rode Longines that I won the Oaks on, and unfortunately she wasn't good enough on the day, but it's a real good race, and it was nice to line up, but it would be nice to win.
And in some ways, it's frustrating that Power Driver isn't there, because although I wouldn't have personally fancied him to win the race, he's a Coronation Cup winner, he's a King Edward VII winner, he goes well at the track. He had numbers, but he also adds a classy number. But it looks like we are going to have the clash of the generations. Yeah. The older horse Love in particular against Adayar. I tell you what, in a piece I'm writing for the weekend, I've gone back to Tinoso in 1983, who won the Derby in soft, then won the King George as an older horse, beating two Oaks winners. But the reason I bring that in is because the 3-year-old here, Adayar, I think most people would agree, would prefer some give in the ground, and we'll have to wait and see exactly what the surface is, but takes on an Oaks winner in Love. Let's start with Love, first of all. She came back in the Princess of Wales Stakes and looks as good as ever.
Looked as good as ever. The big negative I thought about that, she had a real tough race first time out. I'm sure that they'll have done their work at Coolmore, but you know, it's going to be interesting to see. It may have left a scar on her, but she had a tough race at Ascot.
She did have a tough race, but it wasn't a bad renewal. Of course, yeah. This is the Prince of Wales we're talking about at Royal Ascot. She beat a horse called Adayar, who had won at the Breeders' Cup. Armory was in there, second in a Cox Plate. My Oberon is vaguely progressive. Look, it wasn't the greatest field ever for the Prince of Wales, but it wasn't bad. But I suppose she got a tough race. She also got the run of the race, didn't she?
Yeah, she got the run of the race, but for me, you've got a Breeders' Cup winner in second, Matt. So there's nothing to question the form, but she, as I've said before, she had a real tough race first time out, and look, I thought she was as good as anything I've seen for a while last year, and she did nothing to prove me wrong at Royal Ascot.
Let's talk about the Derby winner then, Adayar, trained by Charlie Appleby, presumably ridden by William Buick, beautifully bred by Franco out of a Dubawi mare. And he was a real eye-catcher first time out this season at Sandown. Arguably, well, certainly in my book, I think he should have won the Lingfield Derby trial. I think if they'd ridden it more positively, he would have won that. And then was a relatively big price, but just nibbled at in the Derby under Adam Kirby. Definitely got the run of the race up the rail, but was an authoritative winner on the day.
He couldn't win any better, Matt. Given a great ride by Adam Kirby. Look, if you can pick holes in the form as far as Hurricane Lane has turned the form around with Mojo Star, and you know, as far as I'm concerned, generation-wise, I think Hurricane Lane and Adayar are the best mile-and-a-half horses. So he warrants to take his chance, and it's going to be a very, very interesting race. The older horses against the 3-year-olds.
We should just remind people who are watching, because we don't want to be seen as biased at all, Seb. Who do you ride work for in the mornings?
Charlie Appleby.
Who trains?
Charlie Appleby.
Adayar. No, but I'm sure you're not biased at all. I mean, you're a professional. Yeah. All right, Lone Eagle, another 3-year-old. Remember, the 3-year-old colts get £8 from Love. Lone Eagle was probably unlucky not to win the Irish Derby. He was just picked up.
Yeah, look, I think he brings as good a form as Adayar to the race. I think he surprised Frankie in Ireland in the fact that when Frankie picked him up, I don't think he expected to quicken, and he quickened and put some distance between himself and the pack off what was a pretty strong pace. So Frankie knows what this horse is all about, and if he could ride that race again in Ireland, I think he'd have been a tough horse to beat.
And Mishra is likely to run. Yeah. To be honest, was well put in its place by St Mark's Basilica in the Coral Eclipse Stakes at Sandown. you get the feeling Mr. is better than that, but he's got to start doing at home what he does abroad.
Yeah, look, I thought he ran really well at Sandown. Bumped into a really good horse and looked like the race would bring him on a heaps and bounds, man.
And of the other two that probably have a chance on paper, Wonderful Tonight and Adib, ground will be crucial. Now, if the forecast thunderstorms do appear, and we just don't know as we're talking, but if they do, both of those will come into the reckoning if the ground eased.
Yeah, if the ground eases, you probably take Love out the equation, because it'd be 50-50 whether she'd run or not if there was soft ground. But look, it looks a great race on paper, and I'm sure we'll see a champion, whoever wins.
Well, that is the final big question then, Seb. Who wins the 2021 King George VI and Queen Elizabeth QIPCO Stakes?
I think if the ground stays the way it is, I think Love's going to be take all the beating. But I do like Lone Ranger. Or is it Lone?
Don't worry, Seb. Everyone knows the one you're thinking about.
Yeah.
It was very good until the end. Yeah. Seb Sanders there, former champion. He doesn't have to remember the names because he's just looking for a little bit of love. You see the big race on Sky Sports Racing live at 3:35 Saturday afternoon. It is a Breeders' Cup win and you're in event.